Hello, so we will be discussing about psychological and spiritual reasons which led to the evolution, emergence, spread of Buddhism. One of the most important lightning factor for Buddhism to spread was Buddha himself. His life and his personality took imagination of the masses to a different level. They were in awe of him because here was a prince who has initiated the world to save humanity from sins. He had all the luxuries and all the resources to enjoy life, but he gave up everything, came back to the masses, and spread the message of love, equality, empathy, compassion. The personality of Buddha endeared him and religion to the masses. Buddha was kind and egoless. His calm composure, sweet words of wisdom, philosophy, and his life of renunciation drew the masses to him. The Vedic concept of life having different varna was not very appealing to the masses at that point of time. If you see, the society was moving from a dominance of Brahmins to the dominance of Kshatriyas, and that's why you also see Jainism also flowering during those times. So it was like the society was evolving or changing from the dominance of one caste to the other caste. Offered something which was a simple way to attain nirvana rather than going through the complex Vedic methods. Religious life in ancient India was originally very simple, but in the Vedic period, complex rituals and ceremonies started to dominate the practice of worship. The complex rituals and the sacrifices were not acceptable to the common masses. The whole practice of attaining or getting the blessings of God was expensive, and it had more details, more time, attention required. And blind faith and superstition belief confused the people. So Buddha offered a different path away from this, and that's why it was readily acceptable to the people. In the Vedic text or in the Vedic scripts, you don't find much attention to the women. I mean, where the women can be the priest or where the women can be reader of or the preacher of Vedas. So women also had some opportunities within Buddhism that they wouldn't have access to otherwise, such as the ability to become Buddhist monks. Buddhism gave them an option to work out the traditional sphere of family and home. Or the third reason, which is everyone is a master of their own salvation, that was the concept of Buddha. Buddha's individual outlook and disregard for the caste system in attaining enlightenment were appealing to people in the lower castes. Buddhism suggested that the individual people might be able to attain enlightenment in this life itself, and the way to a salvation is available to everyone. Caste was not a punishment for deeds committed in the past life. The other reason why it spread so wildly was the usage of the language. Buddha was talking, preaching, giving sermons, messages in a local language called Prakrit or Pali during those times. Priests considered themselves superior and others as inferiors. They took advantage of knowing Sanskrit and interpreted religion according to their convenience. While Buddha was open for all and preached in a local language, as I said earlier, of economic needs of the masses or economic needs of the time. The growth of trade during those times had led to the improvement in the economic conditions of the Vaishyas. Now they wanted to enhance their social status, but the orthodox Varna system didn't allow this. Similarly, money lending was implied for trade while Vedas prohibited it. Hence, merchant class supported the new forms of religion, which is Buddhism. Those times, if you see, the whole world, or in fact this part of the world, was trying to attain salvation. So Buddha also offered some kind of salvation or enlightenment in this life only, and his approach to attaining salvation was simple. It was inexpensive. Rise of agriculture raised the demand for draught animals, which were being sacrificed for religious ceremonies. The principle of non-violence suited already settled agrarian communities, and hence they started turning towards Buddhism. and because Buddhism was inexpensive, they didn't have much rituals, so it was far easier for people to start practicing something which was cheap, which was less complex, and hence appealed to the masses to attain that moksha, nirvana, salvation, or whatever you call it. The other psychological reason why Buddhism spread so widely was its practical morality. It was fighting against something which was rites, which was mantras, which was something which was beyond the understanding of the common masses. Practical morality and not rites and expensive rituals came as its main feature and helped to set up a healthy tradition in society. It advocated a spiritual path without any material obligations of satisfying the gods and Brahmins through rituals and the gifts. People competed to embrace Buddhism. Important psychological reasons which I find it making so huge growth in the masses, especially among those who were poor, because here was a king, he was our prince who has left all his worldly riches, all his worldly material resources, and came back and became a poor guy. And he was preaching the message of simplicity, preaching the message of non-violence, preaching the message of living a simple life, and then still being able to attain nirvana. So the message to the common masses who were mostly poor was that even if you're poor, it's far easy to attain nirvana if you follow simple steps given by him, those 4 noble truths and 8 noble paths, in order to reach where the other form of reaching, which had complex rites, complex mantras, and it was to be done at the will of someone else. Here in this concept of Buddhism, you don't have to be dependent on someone else, on some other rites or some other rituals in order to gain it. So it was immediately appealing to the masses to follow this form of enlightenment, or this path towards enlightenment, adjustable to the needs of the society. It was adjusting to the different requirements, expectations of the society of that time. Equally popular in Vaishya community or Shudra communities which could not devote all their time and mental energy to pursuing these challenging goals. So Buddhism came out with something called Mahayana Buddhism, which is a form of Buddhism in which people could still attain enlightenment by performing acts of devotion or performing the duties of their jobs. This alternative approach made Buddhism more acceptable for a greater number of people. Mahayana means the greater vehicle and refers to the opportunity for people to gain salvation. The logical reason why it attracted more number of people was sacrifice versus harmony with nature and animals. Buddhism emphasized on non-violence and sanctity of nature and animal life and protection. It popularized the creed of Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. While at those times in Vedic religion, there was a concept of giving animal sacrifice to appease the gods or appease the lords. These were the psychological reasons why Buddhism gained so much of popularity. We will list 4 or 5 spiritual reasons which led to the growth, popularity of Buddhism. One of the major reasons of it being popular was the quest for the inner peace, or the quest for the peace lied within that concept, wherein if you see this whole world is filled with stress, anxiety, and people are looking for ways to find peace within themselves. Buddhism offered that path to inner peace through its teaching of meditation and mindfulness. The second spiritual reason why it gained popularity was the rejection of the materialism. If you look around in the world, even today or 5,000 years back, you will see there will be a minority of people who will be resource rich. Majority of the people will be fighting a life towards sustaining, towards being able to survive, to haves and the have-nots. So have-nots will always be in the majority. Buddha was appealing to such have-nots to give the concept of materialism, because that was a kind of message which helped the people who didn't have, or the have-nots, to be okay with life and without anxiety, distress in their mind. Its teachings on karma, rebirth, and the Four Noble Path truths provided a sense of direction and purpose. That was one thing. Buddhism offers an alternative perspective that values inner wealth over outer riches. Buddhism also, the third spiritual reason why it was so popular was the search for inner happiness. Everybody wants to be happy, but a few know how to achieve it. Buddhism teaches that the happiness comes from within, not from external circumstances. Its teaching on the Eightfold Path provide a roadmap for cultivating happiness. The fifth spiritual reason why it appealed to the people was the rejection of the dogma. Buddhism is not a dogmatic religion. Its teachings are based on personal experience and observation rather than the blind faith. This openness and flexibility makes it attractive to people who are skeptical of traditional religion. So to summarize, if you see the life of Buddha and his teachings, that makes it so inspiring for people to follow. First of all, he was a historical figure, not some mythical god. And he lived a life on earth. It was not something which was built up, which is made up, which is created stories of different religions, mythological stories to make some more followers, and then start practicing the values of the mythical gods. Here a human being lived. He lived a life. He gave up his riches. He lived a simple life and still was able to attain so-called nirvana, and was able to influence so many number of people during those point of time. Hope this video has been informative for you. Thank you. Thanks for your time and attention for the whole video.